Started. There you go, recording started, and now we get into today's session. So hello everyone. Hope you're feeling well. Hope you're excited about the weekend. I hope that you have got some interesting insights and tips and elements from what we've done in the past couple of days. Today we will be doing two things. So today I'll be finishing up with the workshop. Well, with my presentations and the content I'm bringing. But secondly, when we finish your exercise, which I believe you are fairly close to finishing, what I would like you to do is to put it into a presentation format. I'll be sharing that template with you in a minute.
Actually, about our presentation, about our work, we actually have a lot of work to do. That's why we can't manage to do, unfortunately, this to continue.
Okay, so you're late and you're not going to be able to finish, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because really a lot of there are three of us and a lot of work. That's why we can't do. Yeah.
Okay, then that's fine. Then we'll have to play it by ear and see what we can manage. That's fine. Because one of the key elements of these workshops is to make you work. I'd like to say that when we have face-to-face workshops, I'd like to say that there are moments when you work and I go shopping, because that's a workshop. This case, well, we'll have to improvise. But the objective is for you to get practice on the methodology, on the use of the tools, on the flow of analysis, all these things. But okay, we'll have to play it by ear. That's fine. Not a big problem. So let me start sharing my screen and this is it. So first day we did basically using trade map, understanding what is the behavior of world markets, and within that behavior, particularly of demand, understanding which are attractive markets. A list of 5, 6, 7, a subset, so a short list, if you will, a short list of attractive markets. Then yesterday we discussed market access and market access conditions and tariffs, and how to assess tariffs and understand your competitive position vis-a-vis other players in the market, and therefore how to select a target market. And once we have selected that target market, then we started looking at understanding markets, at what are the key questions to guide your thinking towards completing an understanding of the market. So today, what we will do is finalize that component, or that work around how to win in the markets. And then we'll have work sessions. And in as much as possible, we will have this group presentation. Apparently, it's not going to be a very successful bit, because the Aspromo team is busy and needs to leave early, so that's okay. We'll figure out. We'll see how it works, but then this is it. I mean, today we finish with distribution channels, promotion, and getting prospects and understanding how to get to market. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into how to win, the second bit of how to win. So we started by understanding where to play and selecting a market. Yesterday we discussed market requirements and voluntary market standards, and we discussed SPS and NTBs, and we discussed technical requirements. Today, let's discuss how products get to consumers. And again, the vast majority of your clients, of your served companies will not be selling to consumers, but they will need to know how the distribution channels work so they can understand where to attack and where to try and enter the market, but also how to define their marketing and commercialization strategy, their market entry strategy. So let's begin by discussing distribution channels. What is a distribution channel? Most of you will know, but I just want to make sure that we are up to speed, all on the same page. Distribution channel is the mechanism that a product uses to get to consumers. And there are many channels, and there are many different channels that can exist simultaneously. So the obvious first channel is the producer to consumer. This is what happens when companies do the D2C, the direct to consumer selling. This is what happens when you go to a farmer's market and you buy directly from the farmer. This is when you buy directly from the producer, and it's all well and good, but it requires a certain number of conditions to operate. For example, it needs that the company doing direct to consumer has the logistics and the distribution network and the communication channels to provide buyers the possibility of buying the stuff and then distributing to them, right? So it's not everybody that can do direct to consumer. Then there are some products that will need to go from a producer to a retailer to the consumer. This is, for example, what tends to happen in markets where it's not the farmer that's selling, it's somebody that owns the stall in the market that buys from farmers and then sells their stuff, right? So again, not everyone, and retailers also deliver significant value, because retailers, for example, provide facilities, provide ease of doing business. How many of you do your grocery shopping in farmers markets? Probably none, right? Probably your grocery shopping is done in supermarkets, right?
Yeah.
Why? Why do we go to supermarkets? Well, because they're clean, you can park, it's convenient, you can pay using your debit card, you don't have to carry cash, there are little trolleys that make shopping comfortable, you can find everything you want. There's a lot of value that is provided by the retailer. So retailers can be incredibly important, particularly, for example, if we are shopping for apparel, for men's or women's suits and like business and formal attires, we need a retailer where there is somebody that can help us choose the combinations, the colors, the textures, the styles, all these things. So retailers also add substantive value. In many cases, and this is the case for the vast majority of distribution channels and supply chains, there is a wholesaler at some point, either a wholesaler or a distributor. Why? For example, if your name is Coca-Cola, you don't sell bottles of Coca-Cola, you sell pallets, you sell large volumes. But if the retailer is the small neighborhood shop, they can't buy a pallet of Coca-Colas. They buy, a few boxes, but not a pallet. That pallet is too much. So there is a need for a wholesaler in that distribution channel so that the producer puts it at the wholesaler through commercial arrangements, and that wholesaler breaks down those big volumes into smaller volumes that can more easily go to different retailers, right? This is also a valuable service when, for example, supermarkets get a wholesaler in the distribution chain, in the distribution channel, to ensure that they can get products from many different suppliers. Say, for example, food, not processed, but fresh food, so fruits and veggies. They get them from different suppliers. All of them get put in one place, and that wholesaler provides the retailer, the supermarket, with the facility of not having to deal with 1,000 different suppliers of lettuce and tomatoes, but just one supplier. And somebody else takes the nightmare of doing that business. Wholesalers also can provide a really valuable service or a substantive chunk of value in the distribution channel. Supermarket chains tend to pay their suppliers typically 120 to 150 days after receipt of their merchandise. Their payback periods tend to be extremely long, if only because they can do it, because they have the scale to put the conditions as they want them. But if you're a producer, waiting 120 days, if you're a small producer of anything, say a small producer of bread, 120 days, that is 4 months of working capital that you have to have locked into your production process, because you're buying the wheat, the flour, and you're buying all your inputs, and you're paying rental, and you're paying salaries, and you're doing all of those things today, but for 4 months or 5 months, you will not get a penny. So you need to have 4 or 5 months operation capital in your pocket so you can stand the possibility, you can afford that period, that very long period, before you get your money back. By the way, just a parenthesis, when you're promoting exports, this is typically a problem faced by first-time exporters. They don't understand that typically in their domestic market, they will get their money back within 30 to 45 days, but internationally, at best, they'll get it within 90 days. So they need to double their working capital to ensure they can pay for the operation, they can afford the operation, even at an increased level of operation, because they serve the domestic market and an additional market, right? So it's more than doubling working capital. Many companies find that the cost of capital of increasing their working capital to serve additional foreign markets is incredibly expensive, and sometimes it just drives them broke. So when promoting first-time exporters, the financials of that operation need to be taken into account. Close parenthesis. Back to value chains. So wholesalers will, in many cases, provide small producers with the financial service of breaking down that 120, 150 day payback period into shorter periods, 45, 90 days. Therefore, allowing the small producer to grow their working capital gradually, and then after a few years, get to the point where they can withstand 120 or 150 days of working capital. In some countries, like in the US, if you've ever been to the US, or if ever you have bought products that come directly from the US, you will see that the labels do not say where the product was produced. The labels do not say what is the country of origin of the producer. The labels do not say what is the home address of the producer. Labels on products in the US say which is the US-based company that distributes the product. Because legal requirements establish that if you want to distribute a product in the US, you absolutely must have a local presence. So there has to be a legally responsible entity established and operating within the US to distribute the product. That means that in many supply chains, there needs to be an importer. Even if it's an importer that does other work, that's fine, but the importer typically exists and needs to exist because they deliver the value of covering the legal risk attached to distributing products in the country. And this makes sense because the US authorities will want for a local presence in case something happens. So they find botulism in, I don't know, any prepared food, right? In canned dog food. And dogs start dropping dead because they're getting botulism. The US authorities need to have a local person to go and investigate and fine and eventually get to jail or something. So this is valuable. In other cases, you need to have a broker before the importer. This is very much the case with the cereals and large-scale sales of primary products, of commodity, of food commodities. So wheat and maize and all these internationally traded cereals, they tend to require a broker that will ensure the rest of the supply chain that supply is in the market constantly. So they will source from Argentina, from Canada, from the US, from Russia, from Ukraine, from different places to make sure that there is a constant supply. So brokers also add value in certain cases. And finally, there are cases where agents become incredibly valuable. For example, one sector I have worked a bit with is cocoa. Cocoa or cacao is a sector that is characterized by lots of smallholder producers, typically 1.5 hectares at most. So very small producers spread out over a large territory, typically very poor producers, very poor farmers. So they don't have the ability to take their production and transport it to the big city where the buyers are located. So these buyers, particularly in cocoa, and same applies for coffee and other agricultural commodities, rely on agents to go and get the production from the different farms and transport it to them, who in this case act as brokers or as exporters, right? And the value is, of course, the logistics and having access to production. So what I am trying to say is that distribution channels have the complexity that they require. In other words, distribution channels do not exist just for the sake of it. Intermediaries in the supply chain do not exist just for the sake of it. The logic idea of killing the middleman and skipping the middleman and going direct to consumers, that is very interesting in people and producers' minds and in many people's minds, but it's not as easy. Let me elaborate on why. This is the story of something, this is a real case. This is market research done by a friend of mine, a French friend of mine, who moved to the US to work. And a friend of his, whose father produced wine, said, "Can you please do me a market study on how much it will cost for me to sell my dad's wine in the US?" This is what came back. My friend said, "Yeah, sure. Look, you sell your wine at $21.83 per 12 bottle box. Okay, so it's not an incredibly expensive wine. It's just average quality. But then, of course, you have to ship it to the US, and that costs $9 per box. You have to pay customs duties. Then you have to pay federal liquor tax. Then you have to pay the sales tax, because when you import things, well, it's a sale. So the importer has to pay sales taxes because he's buying. right? That makes the price go up to 35.91. Then, of course, it's the importer's margin because they are, putting in the warehousing and the sourcing and the shipping, and there's a lot of work they do, so they take 25 to 30%, which means that their price is 41.37. And they sell to a distributor. Why? Because the US is huge. And particularly on wine, yes, wine may come in through, say, the port of New York, but then if it's going to be sold in Colorado or Washington State, it's got to go across the country. It's a long distance, and you need intermediaries to take the wine and put it somewhere. So that's why you need a distributor who will charge that much. And then, of course, to the wine store, to the retailer, the price is $57.92. And of course, the wine store is the place that has the fancy, rents the beautiful location downtown, that has the fancy display cases, that has to pay the salary of the person who knows about wines and can recommend this wine with this food or that wine with that food, or who knows these things. That's why their margin is high, 33%. So final sales price is 86.88. That means per bottle that comes to 7.24. That's 300% increase. The problem is producers know this, they know what their exit price is, and they go to a supermarket or a retail slot in the destination market. They see this price, and what they feel is somebody is keeping my money. Somebody is stealing my money from me. I am being robbed. I am being tricked. I am being hustled out of my money, without understanding that this breakdown in costs is actually what it takes. That is the cost of getting to the market. So if you want, as a small producer, if you want to kill the middleman, yes, please, by all means, go ahead and do it. Take into account that you have to pay for transportation, you have to pay for all these things. You have to make sure that the wine actually gets to the wine store in time, in the right quantity, at the right price, and you have to take care of all that, of all those logistics, paperwork, transportation, cooling, legal responsibility, etc. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is both going direct or using intermediaries, using a supply chain that has lots of people in it, both have pros and cons. So one of the big pros of direct distribution is you are closer to the end consumer. You can see their reactions, you get their feedback, you see the changes in habits, you get quicker feedback from consumers. Yes, great, but you take on a whole lot of risk. The more time you are in possession of the merchandise, the higher the risk you are facing of something going wrong and not getting the money, not being able to sell the product. If you're doing indirect, of course, risk gets spread out. Of course, if you go direct, that means that you get bigger profits. If you go indirect, you have to share profits, but you need to have the knowledge if you want to go direct. You need to have the knowledge, the experience, the network, all the resources required to distribute, because that's what you're paying for when you're paying the distribution channel. Of course, that gives you less control over the representation of your product in the market, but that's a cost. So the key point here is using a distribution channel with intermediaries brings higher costs of operation, but doing direct brings higher costs of investment. And investment not only in terms of money, but also in terms of time and knowledge of learning. Because if you're selling your products in a new market with a different language, different culture, different situation all around, you need to learn the language, you need to realize what the culture is like, how it relates to your culture, how you do business in that language, how do you do business in that country, how do things operate. It takes a long time, and it takes money, and it takes knowledge. So it takes a very long and steep learning curve. So investment is not only in infrastructure, but in going up that very long and very steep learning curve. Therefore, going direct or indirect depends on ultimately the capacities of the exporting company. If the selling company has the capital, the time, and the people, and the access to the knowledge and all these things, please, by all means, go direct. By all means. But the majority of your exporters are small to medium-sized companies. And they are, at least internationally, compared to the large international companies, they are going to be small and medium-sized at best. Therefore, they probably will not have the capital or the cultural awareness or the staff to go direct. So they have to go indirect. Right? So the key message is the costs of the distribution channel are important, and they need to be borne in mind, because price definition relies very, very heavily on the cost of the distribution, as we just saw with the example of the wine. Another small parenthesis: international pricing is one of the key challenges. We will be discussing that in a minute, but I have provided you, well, not yet, I will provide you with a specific document it's like 10 pages extracted from a manual on international price definition, so pricing for SMEs. I find that to be extremely useful, and I'll just share it with you. Second element that is important within distribution channels is responsibility. So these are Incoterms. Are you familiar with Incoterms? You know what they mean? International commercial terms?
Yeah, yes, we do. Yeah.
Of course, yes.
Okay, so just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, Incoterms are just conditions, international commercial terms. They are the terms and conditions that apply to every type of relationship between buyer and seller. They define where does the responsibility of the seller end and the responsibility of the buyer begin. And this is very important when it comes to commercial disputes or to just understanding the costs to be borne across the distribution channel. So this on the top left, all the way to the left, EXW stands for X Works. What that means is the merchandise is sold at the seller's facilities, in the warehouse of the seller, right? By the door of the warehouse. That means that all the other transportation, all the other logistics, everything else needs to be taken on board, is the responsibility of the buyer. Then there is free carrier, that is that merchandise put on top of the truck that takes the merchandise to the port. Mind you, these Incoterms refer all to maritime shipping. There is a set of Incoterms for both land shipping, either on rail or by truck, and there's another set of Incoterms for air shipping. But because 80-something% of the world's trade takes place by ship, these are the standards. So free carrier is on the truck before the port. Free alongside ship, FAS, is literally merchandise put next to the ship. So it's before it takes the crane takes the container and puts it on the ship. FOB, which is the standard, is once the container has touched the ship, that is where the responsibility of the seller finishes. Then there is CFR, which includes the cost and the freight. So this is without the insurance, it's the merchandise put in the ship, paid for the shipping, but without paying insurance. CIF is also the second standard or most frequent term, which is at the port of delivery, so at the port of importation, cost, insurance, and freight, which covers the cost of the product, the insurance for the shipping, and the freight for the international shipping. Then CPT, carriage paid to, then there is carriage and insurance paid to, then delivered at terminal, delivered at place, and DDP. DDP is, funny enough, increasingly common. DDP is the way we buy things off Amazon. International e-commerce is done DDP. You pay with your credit card on a website, and then stuff gets to your place, to your house, to your flat, to your office. So that is delivery duty paid, right? And this determines if something happens, who has the responsibility for the merchandise and the costs associated. So having discussed these terms and these conditions and risk, let me ask you a really short pop quiz. If you've got highly perishable product, tomatoes, is it better to have a long or a short distribution channel? Let me take you back here. Highly perishable product, tomatoes, long or short? Vusal, I can't hear you.
Short. Right?
Short. Anybody else? Short or long? So Vusal says short.
I state also short.
Short. Samira says short. Malik?
Maybe long, if, for
Maybe
example,
long.
in
Why?
that case, when agents pay you, you have your money and responsibility. You give your responsibility to the agent, and it will be his responsibility about perishable food and expiration date of the product.
But
Thank you, my friend.
But we need to pay attention to the shelf life of the products.
Ah,
in this case,
yes, excellent, excellent point.
Tomato is short.
Highly perishable,
shelf life.
so it needs to move quickly.
Yes,
Yes.
of course. Why not?
Yeah, great points, great points. Now, let me give you the rule of thumb. The more perishable the product, the longer the distribution channel. That doesn't have anything to do with logistics. Logistics is a different thing. So I agree with Samira. Logistics has to be very quick with perishables. That is why we have reefer containers and refrigerated trucks and cold chains all around, because tomatoes or fresh cut flowers that I worked for like 5-6 years, those need to be shipped very, very, very quickly. But the issue is, because these products rot very quickly, they have a very short shelf life, they need to pass hands very quickly, so that the risk that any one player in that chain, the risk borne by any one of those players is small. If you are selling tomatoes and you're shipping a 40-foot reefer high Q container, you are shipping close to 40 tons of tomatoes. And you land your tomatoes you land your tomatoes at the port of Rotterdam, and there is a strike. And your container sits on the port for 2 weeks. What happens to your tomatoes? What happens to your cash flow? Tough. That's why nobody wants to take such huge risks with large volumes when it's highly perishable. Highly perishable products require small volumes to be moved around very quickly in terms of responsibilities. By the way, that's another reason why supermarkets have large margins, because they bear a very large risk, because they handle very large volumes of these highly perishable products. Tomatoes, apples, pineapples, all the fruits and veg, all the meat, all the dairy, all these things that have very short shelf lives, well, they manage quite a bit of volume. So they bear quite a lot of risk. That's why supermarkets for these things go to wholesalers instead of going to farmers, because they need more intermediaries to help them deal with the volumes, but also because wholesalers will provide these retailers with one point of call, 1 or 2 points of call, 1 or 2 wholesalers or buyers that will do the buying for them, instead of having to deal with 45, 100, and 150 farmers that provide them the tomatoes, the dairy, all the other things, right? So it is counterintuitive, but the more perishable the product, the longer the distribution channel. Okay?
All right.
Have I convinced you, Samira?
Good. Good point. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, so see, I guess the key message is distribution channels do provide a hell of a lot of value. They're incredibly valuable because they do bring things that wouldn't exist otherwise. And intermediaries contribute to this. So the costs that are associated with distribution channels, are important, and you need to bear them in mind when you're thinking about pricing. So how do you price? How do you define prices for exports? Well, there's 3 ways. There's 3 mechanisms, and you can make them as sophisticated or as simple as you want. First one is the cost plus or markup. This is very traditional. This is, you take into account your costs. How much does it cost to produce 1 unit of each product? You include the fixed cost, the variable costs, every single cost. You add all that up. You put on top of that a margin, which is how much money you want to make of the transaction. And that's the price. So your costs are $80 and you want a 20% profit margin. You want $20 profit margin, then your final price is 100. Simple, straightforward. What is the benefit? The benefit is you make sure that the price includes every single cost. So you're not going to lose money. In fact, because you're already adding the markup, your margin, you're going to make money. Good. What's the risk? That the price may be too high. That the price may price you out of the market. That competition actually delivers lower prices. This tends to happen quite a bit in international markets when you're first entering international markets. Why? Because you don't have your distribution channel already built up and well greased and fully operational, which means that everybody is facing risks. Because everybody's facing risks, they cover their backsides, they ask for higher prices. Tends to be that your price initially is less competitive than it gets once you are in the market. What's the alternative? Well, the opposite. Start from the sales price and work your way back, right? So if the sales price is not 100 but 80, well, you've got to figure out where you're going to cut costs and how you're going to work your way into getting your cost recovered, right? In this situation, the great advantage is, of course, you know you have a competitive price. Your price is the market price, so you are competitive. The risk is the market price is too low for your cost structure, so you lose money. There's a final way of establishing prices or pricing, which is the marginal cost. This is the costing method, the pricing methodology that says that your price is the cost of producing one additional unit of the product. So you only cover the marginal costs. You only cover the variable costs associated with that unit, and basically that's it. The great benefit is, of course, if you've not included all the fixed costs, rental, electricity to operate administration, the cost of the salaries of the people doing the administration of the company, the salary of the president of the company, all those things, well, you're taking away a big chunk of costs. So you know that your price is going to be incredibly competitive. Very low price, people will be happy. Risk, it is mostly illegal. In fact, it is the very textbook definition of what dumping means. Dumping is literally the sale of products at not full cost, not full recovery cost, or not including all recovery of all costs. So if you're leaving out your fixed costs, you are in fact conducting what is called a predatory trade practice. And why is it predatory? Because basically your price is so low that nobody else can compete. People, if you have enough scale, people will go broke. You gain a lot of market share, and the logic is once you've got 70 or 80% market share, you raise the prices, you recover all the money, you've become a monopolist, and then you go home making tons of money. That's why it's predatory, that's why it's illegal, that's why if you get caught, you'll be prosecuted. And we saw yesterday when we looked at market access map, how many trade remedies there are, particularly between China and the US, and China and Russia and the US and EU, and developed countries. They too tend to like their dumping and anti-dumping duties quite a bit. So it is a risk. Now, mind you, this is what the Japanese did in the US for years in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s. This was their market entry strategy. Come in with as low a price as possible, gain as big a market share as possible. Then once we're established, then we gradually increase prices. We play the long game. We recover our money late in the game, and that we're fine. They were fine. I mean, they did get quite a substantive market share in many products, including cars. But there you go. The cost is difficult. So the question is, which one of these three should you use? It depends. It depends on the product, on the market, on the situation, on the company. Hey, if you can get away as a company with doing the marginal cost pricing because in effect your fixed costs are covered, hey, go ahead. You won't be looked at. Nobody's going to pay any attention to you and your predatory pricing practices until you become a large player in the market, because to that point nobody will pay any attention. You're insignificant. So if you can do it, please by all means do it. Right? So what I'm saying is there is no fixed formula. In fact, companies use all of these mechanisms. Even today, companies do establish, in many cases, predatory pricing, marginal cost pricing, when they are entering markets. It tends to happen, it does happen. Not to, with all types of caveats, but it does happen. So what I'm saying is, use the pricing strategy that best suits your individual position. Therefore, my friends, you who deliver advice to companies need to bear in mind which are the costs of the distribution channel and allow companies to determine by themselves what their pricing and their market entry strategy will be. Okay? Next, let's talk about promotion. And promotion is very important because promotion is what allows us to get into the market, to gain market share, to actually get sales. In fact, our friends at AsPromo, your job is to do promotion. That's why you're called a trade promotion agency, because that's what you do, right? So promotion is incredibly important. Promotion is, if we take a step back, promotion is the activity or the set of activities that seeks to take consumers on a ride, on a journey of 3 steps. The first step is awareness, them not knowing anything about the product to the point where they know about the product. They are aware of the product, of its characteristics, of its attributes, of its benefits, of all the great things that this product has and brings and will provide for you. That's the first. Second step is making that awareness so intense and so good and so attractive that people will want to try it, have a first taste of it. And once they've tried it, comes a third step, which is they've liked it so much that they adopt it. They become regular users, consumers, buyers of the product. Whatever the product may be a service. The product may be a combination of services. Who cares? It's the same thing. Promotion is these 3 steps, is taking any consumer from zero knowledge all the way to adoption, right? That means that it's very strongly based on communication, because you have to relay to consumers these messages, and you have to relay to buyers these messages. Buyers, as I said, 95, 98% of your clients will be buyers, will be importers, will be retailers, will be distributors, not consumers. So because it's a B2B transaction, it requires a B2B specific promotional strategy, which means sending the right message to the right person at the right time using the right medium. Okay? So which are the media? Well, media, there are many. One thing that is absolutely mandatory is having samples and literature. So literature is everything and anything. It's the brochures, the websites, the all the material that you can prepare to communicate, right? And of course, these are absolutely fundamental. Consider going to a trade fair for the first time. Of course, you absolutely must bring literature. You need to bring brochures and samples, because that's how you show your product on a B2B basis, right? Also, free press is always a good thing. So as the trade promotion organization or as the SME agency, one of your key roles is to help in as much as possible the companies that you're promoting get as much free press as possible. If buyers suddenly realize that, I don't know, Azeri apricots are incredibly sweet and savory and beautiful and tastier than any other apricot in the world. And this is not said by sellers, but by a newspaper writer, by a specialized magazine, by the travel, the writer of the travel magazine in Emirates flights and airplanes. That is a message worth sending. So for you as promoters, developing a really good network with the press in country and in as much as possible in target countries is incredibly valuable. Part of your task as a promotion agency, as promotion bodies, is to help your companies be known in the target market, and as such, use in as much as possible local press, so that the local press can generate buzz and generate awareness of your producers, your products, the Azerbaijan origin, etc. Of course, using social media, social networks is very, very, very valuable because it's the medium that everybody consults nowadays. Now, this is slightly tricky because social media is many things. For example, I am working currently or I have worked well, within this project, I have worked quite extensively in Central Asia and Eastern Europe while living in Western Europe. So in Western Europe, the business social network is LinkedIn. Nobody asks the question. If you want to promote yourself as a business and if you want to develop business connections, you go on LinkedIn, full stop. But that's not the case in Central Asia, as far as I've understood. Central Asia and East and Southeast Asia, Facebook is a social network of preference, and you put everything on Facebook, even your business practices. In the West, Facebook is for personal things, pictures of your cat, pictures of your dog, pictures of your children, birthdays, whatever, or ranting about politics. It's not about business. So understanding, and I am facing this problem today. I have an endeavor with friends from the Netherlands, and we have been trying to promote an activity that we want to do in Vietnam and other countries in Southeast Asia, and we've been trying to promote it through LinkedIn. We get incredibly little traction. We've got 40 followers, no traction at all. We started doing it on Facebook and immediately started getting more pickup. Why? Because people are looking at Facebook. People are not looking at LinkedIn. So understanding social networks is incredibly important. Understanding how to use the social network to position your message and your message as a promotion body is also incredibly important. So these things require expertise and knowledge. So what I'm saying is, don't just get an intern to do your social media presence, because it needs a strategy. It needs to be well informed by an expert. It needs to be well developed by experts. It requires strategy and development. And in as much as they are a top phenomenon, be aware of influencers. Beware of influencers. Influencers can be as good or as bad as their behavior is. So you can have many cases of an influencer being incredibly visible and important and suddenly being caught doing something stupid or illegal, and then dragging down the name of your brand, including your country brand, down because they are associated now with corruption or, I don't know, drug trafficking or whatever it is. So use of influencers, careful, careful, careful. need to be extremely delicate with this. Second element, or second medium, trade fairs. In the world of international trade promotion, trade fairs are considered to be the be-all and end-all of trade promotion tools. In fact, every single organization across the world that you charge with the responsibility of promoting exports considers, okay, what trade fairs are we going to go to? Because we're going to sell in these trade fairs. Whenever I see this, I get indigestion. My stomach curls, because trade fairs are probably the most misunderstood promotion tool out there. In the newbies' minds, and the people that have no experience or very limited experience in international trade, in their minds, a trade fair is a bit like going to your local market, a bit like going to your local bazaar. You pay for a stand or for a stall. You present your goodies. People come in. People like. People don't like. If people like, they buy. If people don't like, they walk away. And your job is to promote and try to convince people to buy from you. That's it. So you go to trade fairs to buy, to sell. I'll say it again in a bit, but trade fairs are not selling opportunities. You do not, never, no, go to a trade fair to sell. You go to a trade fair to do something different. I will elaborate in a minute. But what this means is trade fairs are incredibly powerful if they are well thought through, if they are well done, and if they have received the proper investment. Going to a trade fair, participating well in a trade fair, requires solid investment. It is expensive. It's not only the physical stall, the physical space, and the construction of the place. It's also all the other side events and all the other promotional activities and all the agendas you're going to build around it and all the other work that goes on in the preparation, in the actual fair, and in the follow-up. So if they're done well, trade fairs are incredibly powerful. That's the reason why they exist. They require a very clear long-term strategy because they're not like your local bazaars. It's not like you go to the trade fair in Dubai to sell in Dubai, and then you go to the trade fair in the UAE to sell in the UAE, and then you go to the trade fair in Cologne to sell in Germany. No, that's not the way it works. You need to think very clearly, very strategically, which are your target markets, which are your target clients, who are you going to reach, and how this trade fair helps to reach them. It requires long-term strategic thinking. So you don't need to do 15 trade fairs a year. Maybe you do 2. I am involved in this initiative in Southeast Asia I was telling you about. We do 1 trade fair a year. No more than 1. We don't need more than 1. But that one is done really, really, really well. And we start planning it a year in advance. And we do follow-up a year afterwards. And there's a lot of long-term thinking. But trade fairs will only be effective if they're done well. Advertising is the other thing that is frequently requested from trade promotion organizations and from promotion organizations. That is, why don't we conduct an advertising campaign, or we do a country brand or a sector brand, and so trade promotion organization, invest a couple $1 million in getting us visibility in all the travel magazines and all the airplanes across the world. And, invest $100 million in getting us to be the next whatever it is. Okay, advertising, of course it works. If it didn't work, we wouldn't have it. So it works. But how does it work and what does it do and what do you want to achieve? How can you achieve it with it? First thing is advertising tends to be expensive. It requires substantive investments, not only to pay for the space in the media, TV, print, whatever, but more importantly and often neglected in the preparation of the advertising pieces. If you're going to pay, I don't know, $100 million for a 30-second spot in the US Super Bowl, you're not going to show a commercial that cost you a couple million to produce. No! If you're going to invest that type of money, you've got to make it a huge show so it generates as big an impact as possible. So you're going to want to spend at least as much in the preparation of the advert. So yes, advertising is expensive because it's an investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment. Which means that probably for SMEs individually, it's going to be tough. And that's why it's often requested of trade promotion organizations. As I was saying, it requires highly sophisticated professional assistance in the preparation, in the design, in the implementation. And there's also a demand for special promotional events. So if instead of investing the $250 million that I've just mentioned on the 30-second spot in the US Super Bowl, if we did something like doing the Azerbaijan week in France, so a week during which Azerbaijani products, Azeri products and culture and food and dances and all these things are promoted by taking over half a floor in, I don't know, 3 very important Parisian shops like Galeries Lafayette. And you do that over a week. Maybe you have a bigger impact in terms of raising the awareness of the French public towards the Azerbaijani, to the Azeri products and culture, and they may be interested in, they maybe want to know more, and maybe they want to visit Azerbaijan and whatever. So special promotional events can be incredibly powerful. I like to tell the story of a friend of mine, an older gentleman who was the Argentinian ambassador to Switzerland. This is, I don't know, 17, almost 20 years ago. He was stationed in Bern, of course, and he went to the supermarkets and the shops, and because he came from the commercial promotion background, what he saw is the opportunity for Argentinian products in the market. So he convinced a few producers, like 10 companies from Argentina, to pitch in money. And he went with that money and he convinced Manor, which is the posh, elegant, expensive department store in Switzerland, to make space for Argentina in 3 of their shops. One in Bern, one in Zurich, one in Geneva, so the 3 biggest cities. And so they gave him, well, of course he paid for that, but they gave him space to have displays of Argentinian fruits and fruit products and jams and juices, and he did tango dancing exhibitions, and he had tastings and of Argentine beef, and a whole thing, whole promotional event around Argentinian products for a week, 3 shops. As a result of that, of course, that is a one-off investment. But as a result of that, of those 10 companies, 5 managed to get their products registered and distributed by Manor. So even today, those shops keep on selling Argentinian wines and Argentinian jams and beef and all types of things. So the return on investment was very, very positive. But of course, it required this guy to work on it for a long number of months, get convincing companies to invest. It is expensive. It requires collective effort. It can be very effective, but it requires work and requires also very clever, very smart professional advice. So let me elaborate a bit more on trade fairs. Again, I said they're not selling opportunities, and I saw a few of you opening your eyes and saying, what? What do you mean not selling opportunities? No. You do not go to a trade fair to sell. The first thing you go to do to a trade fair is to position the brand and the attributes of the producer. So the brand name, and you go to present your products and your brand associated with certain things. I don't know, different things. Could be nature. So if you're selling, for example, I know you sell honey. A couple of years ago when I was in Baku, I met one of your companies that produces really delicious honey. And they brought honey to the workshop and we tasted it. It's really delicious. The selling argument is it's all natural. No pesticides used in the places where the bees go and pollinate flowers. So nature could be one thing. Quality, of course, needs to be. Organic production systems can be, whatever it is. So you go to position the brand and the product. That's the first thing. The second thing is you go to observe, you go to watch what everybody else is doing, how everybody else is positioning their products. What are the innovative products that they're bringing to the market? What are the new things they're doing? What are the colors they're associating with? What are the presentations? What are the packaging? What are the labels that they're using? What is happening in the market? Because as you position yourself, everybody's positioning themselves. So go to a trade fair to understand where the market is, where it's heading, who are the players, what is happening. By the way, to position yourself is to, in a way, raise your hand and say, I am a player in this market. I am a reliable supplier of products in this market. Which means the worst possible strategy for trade fair participation is to go to a trade fair once and never again, or go every 2 occasions. That is as good as taking your dollar bills, lighting them on fire and throwing it away, or even worse. Why? Because you have to bear in mind who attends, who are the visitors to these trade fairs. Visitors are professional buyers. Professional buyers of professional companies that buy your products and sell them or distribute them or buy them as inputs into their own production processes. What this means is these guys know their stuff. They're not improvising. They go to every trade fair every year, all the time. They know who's in the market. They're actively buying. They're actively seeking constantly for new suppliers. They know the prices. They know the qualities. They know what's happening. So if they see your products and your companies this year. They've never been to the trade fair. They see them this year. They don't see them the year after. But then maybe 2 years down the line, they're there again. The image these buyers get is one of lack of professionalism, lack of focus, lack of reliability, which means you have killed the reliability and the brand and all the good that the quality of the product could have brought, you've destroyed by presenting an unprofessional, unreliable image. So that's why I was saying you need a long-term strategy. So if you're going to, and this is, for example, what we're doing with our companies in Southeast Asia. You want to sell in the natural ingredients space, fine, you have to go organic. Why? Because that's the way the market is. Buyers will not buy unless certified. So get your certification and go to Biofach. Biofach is the trade fair for organics. Don't go to 15 different trade fairs because everybody that buys organic goes to Biofach. So you don't need to go anywhere else. And you go to Biofach not once, not twice, you go there every single year. And you showcase the same level of professionalism and seriousness. Because that is what buyers will be looking. What buyers are doing, what is they're doing observation. They're looking around. So you want to be seen, right? So these are the two major functions of a trade fair. The third major function is get contacts. Know people, meet people, exchange business cards, chat to people, understand what they do. Why are they at the trade fair? How long have they been coming? Do they come here every year? Are they coming for all 3 or 5 days to the trade fair? Or are they only coming one afternoon? Where are they staying? Did they manage to get hotel rooms that are affordable? What are they buying already from somebody else? Are they trying to sell to somebody? Get conversations going. Why? Because this is how you connect into markets. It's not by offering cheaper products, it's by developing relationships. Again, these buyers, they're long-term buyers. They only buy on the basis of a relationship that exists. So, where do you get information on trade fairs? Everywhere. You go online and I'm just providing here a list. There's thousands of trade fairs across the world. You will know which are the important trade fairs in your product of interest, so I won't even go there. Next bit is how do you get contacts? How do you get contacts that can lead to business? How do you get to know people who are buying or who are in the market? Obviously, and the first thing is referrals. Why referrals? Well, let me ask it. Well, the way I tend to ask this question is whenever there are ladies in the room, and Samira, I'm looking at you, I ask ladies, how did you select your gynecologist? Did you take the phone book and went to the section of gynecologists and said, this one? You know, gynecologist, a ladies' doctor?
Actually, we don't do it because we have the trade representative in the countries or trade house. They help us, and through the diplomatic agencies we contact, and they give us for example, trade contacts, reliable trade contacts.
You're not answering my question. How did you identify your gynecologist? How did you choose your gynecologist? Your doctor, your ladies' doctor?
For me?
Yes, yours.
Okay. In practice, I just get others' advice, and
of course. This is the same gynecologist that sees your mother, your aunt, your older sister, your friend, somebody that you know. You get referrals. Yes, these are called referrals, and referrals are the single most important mechanism to get contacts in the world, in the business world. Why? Because the reason Samira started going to the gynecologist that she sees, lady or man, who doesn't matter, is because somebody recommended. And somebody recommended because they had tried and they had had good experience. And they found that the person not to be creepy and not to be uncomfortable and not to have cold hands and whatever it is. Right? So referrals are incredibly important. This is the way you get good contacts. When somebody you know gives you advice on who to source from or whose door you're going to knock. And it's the same thing with buyers. Buyers are constantly looking for referrals of sellers. So, Samira, your trade attaches across the world, what they need to be doing is going out and making friends that will recommend buyers of different things. So the way they are doing their job is by getting referrals too. What I'm saying is, in the same way you select your gynecologist, your dentist, your lawyer, your accountant by referrals, in the business world, people get suppliers by referrals. And you should select buyers by referrals. These are the prime source of good contacts because you know they're reliable, you know they're a friend of a friend, and you can trust them. Second powerful source is contacts you've made in trade shows, people that you have met, people whose face you have already seen, people with whom you have managed to get a few words across. You understand who they are, what they're coming to do, etc. So you know that they exist. You know that they're not just a prince out of Nigeria trying to share their fortune with you. Then a step lower is you can get contact from industry associations, from industry magazines, from LinkedIn. I mentioned Facebook and I didn't put Facebook here. Why? Because Facebook is a lot more promiscuous as a source of referrals, as a source of people. You get all kinds of players inside Facebook, and it's a lot more difficult to control that somebody is a serious buyer or a serious seller. So I'm not particularly keen on trying to export by getting clients on Facebook. And then finally, internet directories and web pages. They exist. I mean, TradeMap has a section on companies. That will be a qualified, good quality source of contacts. But that's fairly limited. If you go searching for buyers of tomatoes, you'll get everything and anything. It's going on Alibaba and seeing who buys tomatoes. God knows who they are. God knows how they will pay, if they will pay. Risk is too big. So contacts need to be qualified, need to be good quality contacts. And if you are providing contacts in your information provision to companies, you need to provide high quality information on contacts. Okay? Where do you get this information? Well, as I said, contacts. As I said, people you've met in trade fairs. You can get information on TradeMap, as I mentioned, and there are companies that specialize on this information. In fact, when we were discussing sources of information, I discussed Dun & Bradstreet, for example, or Thomas Register. These are specialized professional websites where not everybody can get in, where there are filters to get in, filters to get advertised, so that is helpful. You do get quality referrals or quality contacts. So that is what I wanted to say up to this point. Now you have all the information you require in terms of sources, in terms of methodologies, to complete a comprehensive plan for companies to understand where is the demand, to understand which are the right markets to target, select a single market, and then understand how to get into the market. In a regular workshop, this is the moment when I would leave you to work to prepare the presentation, to complete the exercise, put that exercise into a PowerPoint template that I am about to share with you right now, and let you work on preparing your presentation. Now, I understand that, so in the chat box, you have a template, a file that I've just uploaded. I understand that as promo members are really, really, really busy, and you will not be able to conduct the rest of the workshop because there's just too much stuff happening in your work life today. So that is okay, that's fine. If the As Promo crew needs to leave, then I will just ask you to fill in this form, this evaluation form I've just put in the chat. The chat box now, there are two things. First is the presentation template, and secondly, the evaluation form for this workshop. So if I can ask you before you leave.
Yeah,
yes,
of course we can answer the. We just answer the questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then we will ask. Yesterday I told you about recordings and presentation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. If it's possible to.
It is not only possible, it is very easy. What I will do is I will share right now the link to the Google Drive where everything is saved. I am going to email it to you as soon as we're finished so I can upload the recording of this session.
Yeah.
So the first is the Google Forms for the evaluation. The second is the Google Drive.
So the second one is the same.
Yeah, probably it's the same.
Same link. Opens up the same link.
No, it's not the same.
It opens up the evaluation.
It refers to the same link.
No, the first is the evaluation form. Then this, then the next three are the links to the. Yep. In the second link, which is second, third, and fourth things I've pasted here, you will find 3 video files, 3 MP4 files, and a folder called Materials. The folder itself, the whole folder is called Azerbaijan, and there's also the web shop on conducting international markets form.
But sorry, all of the 3 links refers to the evaluation, like to the first link. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't understand why.
I already started to fill in. Okay,
great. Yes, please fill it in. You'll see that it's extremely simple. It's just about checking boxes and a couple of text entries, and that's it. Very, very simple.
First, we need to fill the presentation, right?
Actually, you don't, but what I will do is I will email you. I had already copied the You see, the thing is, I do not have your emails, your email addresses in.
I'll
I
write
don't.
here.
I have your email addresses in an email, and so I don't have the list. I need to copy paste into
Okay,
an email message.
I'll send you. I'll send you now.
Yeah, send me your emails. In any case, I do have a list of your emails. I will send out the Google Drive address for this. Okay, so you can share all of this with you.
And presentation, if it's possible.
Yes. All the materials,
well.
everything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's the recordings, the materials, and the evaluation form. All of that will be sent.
We should fill in the blanks only, yeah?
Sorry?
We should fill in the blanks only, yeah? In these links, which you send us.
In the link I've just sent you, you should basically complete the form, which is very, very simple. There's only...
complete the form without presentation, I mean.
Yeah. Just complete the form and submit it, and that's it.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'm working on sending you via email
Do we need to log into our Google account, or it's just the name of organization is enough?
Name of organization is enough. Now, if you want to put in your name as well, that's fine, but it's not required.
Miguel, they're all the same.
Yeah.
We should.
I will work. I don't understand why Google is doing this.
Okay, then we are starting to complete this. Fill in this blank.
And while we are talking, I am preparing the email to send you the access to share with you the access to the Google Drive.
I've sent addresses in chat. You can just copy and paste them.
Thank you. I had just finished doing that. Oh, Ireland is just coming in. Hello, Ireland. Okay, so Ireland, do I have your email address?
Do you hear me?
Now
yesterday,
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, yesterday you sent me Word
Oh,
file.
yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. I do have it. Let me get it again. Yes, irlanshokulov@gmail.com. Okay. Okay, I'm doing it. Okay, Ilan, you've got to go. Go ahead. No worries. It's fine. I understand you have to go. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, so I have already sent from Google Drive the invitation to edit. I have emailed you, all of you, the address, the link. And here I am pasting in the chat that last link. Yes, that last link does give you access to the Google Drive. So now you've got everything. Now there's no way you are missing access to the thing. So with this, okay, I have received only one evaluation form. I have only one answer. I will appreciate you completing the evaluation form. It literally takes you 5 minutes.
I've done, and my colleagues are doing it now.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you so very much, Malik. Still have only one response. Okay, guys. So I guess you're all busy, and yeah, we will not be able to have that final session where you present the findings and the results of your own research and your own process. So I think that we might as well end this workshop here.
Yeah, actually, and we would like to thank you for all of your efforts, and it was really valuable information for us. And yeah, thank you very much. We will use it again, and we will watch definitely your recordings again. And yeah, thank you very much, really.
Well, no, it's me who thanks you. I know this is the first time we do this workshop this way, doing it online instead of doing it in a room.
Yeah.
That means that we have had to adapt and change and improvise in some parts. But overall, I think that, well, I hope that you are taking away lots of content, lots of learning, lots of material, lots of stimulation. I hope that you have found it as useful as I think you have. I'm just glad that I managed to help you learn how to use TradeMap and how to use a structured approach to doing market research. Well, I am always available for you should you have questions or comments. I am going to leave in the... Oh, you've received an email from me, so you've got my email address, you've got my mobile number. I'm just a WhatsApp message away, so if ever you need, you have questions and you need explanations, or you have any thoughts you'd like to share, any questions you'd like to ask, please don't think about it, just do it. I'm just a WhatsApp message away.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Miguel, thank you for everything and for your initiatives you take. And it will be better to organize this kind of training because it was so useful for us after the working hours. Is it possible for the next time?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. I have absolutely no problem. I don't know when and how the next time will take place because, the project is coming to an end this December, and I don't know what will happen for a next phase. There appears to be a second phase in the works. I don't know, but if there is a second phase, we will try and do it either physically, so you can be out of the office and in the room, or after working hours.
It will be great. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Samir.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miguel.
Thank you, Eldar. Do you want to say something to close the event?
Yeah, maybe a couple of words. I hope it was very helpful for our participants. We have here a representative from Promo and SME Development Agency. We also had a representative from ACTMA, Azerbaijan Corporate Directors and Managers Association. I'm not sure if people from SMEs joined our training, but anyway, I think definitely for BSOs, business support organizations, this training was extremely helpful. And again, it was my second time. And even now I learned several new things after this training. So I'm absolutely sure it was very helpful. And let's keep in touch. I think Miguel wouldn't mind to answer our questions if we have some. So I think if some of us, Samira just mentioned that it would be better to conduct this training after working hours. So probably some of us was distracted by various things, various urgent, I don't know, things. So I think if there is something that we want to confirm or clarify, I think we can contact Miguel. You can contact me if you want. So again, thank you very much, Miguel. Hope it was very helpful. I hope it was very interesting for you too. It was.
It was.
So, thank you. Thank you to everyone, to participants and to you, Miguel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Radar, for your contribution as well. Yeah, it was really helpful, as you mentioned, really helpful for us. And we will use definitely these techniques and information that we learned here.
We thank you on behalf of Promo for organizing such training.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. And I will say, I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah.
Thank
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.